Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, August 1st, 2025. Seniors, tip receivers, and overtime recipients, enjoy your new benefits, until they expire in 2028. President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill was signed into law over the July 4th weekend. Now, while he was campaigning, President Trump promised that there would be no tax on Social Security benefits, no tax on tips, and no tax on overtime. However, after going through Congress, the president actually got much less than he promised. Instead of the promised no taxes on Social Security, there's now a senior deduction for people over 65 of $6,000 for a single person making less than $75,000 in modified adjusted gross income, and a $12,000 deduction for a married couple over 65 making less than $150,000 in modified adjusted gross income. Now, over these amounts, the amount of the deduction gradually reduces to zero for singles with $175,000 of adjusted gross income and married couples with $250,000 of modified adjusted gross income. Now, it's expected that 88% of seniors will now be exempt from taxation on Social Security benefits. However, this provision expires on December 31st, 2028. Now, instead of the promised no taxes on tips, workers who traditionally receive tips, waiters, bartenders, delivery drivers, and some others, they can deduct up to $25,000 of these tips from their adjusted gross income. This deduction is eliminated for incomes over $150,000 for single filers and $300,000 for married filers. It's retroactive to January 1st, 2025, but it also ends on December 31st, 2028. Instead of the promised no taxes on overtime, there's now a deduction of up to $12,500 for single taxpayers, $25,000 for married taxpayers for qualified overtime compensation received during the year. Now, the deduction phases out with the adjusted gross income of $150,000 for singles and $300,000 for a joint return. This deduction ends on December 31st, 2025. In conclusion, President Trump, we agree that it's the right thing to do to free seniors from taxes on Social Security benefits, free waiters and servers from taxes on their tips, and to free workers from taxes on the overtime they need to support their families. However, what about the rest of the American taxpayers? Isn't it time to free all of us from the tyranny of the federal income tax and the IRS? The income tax must go if we're going to make America great again. Now, if there's an income tax, any changes are only permanent until there's a new president whose party controls Congress. Now, a recent Qantas Insights poll showed that the majority of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents are all in favor of eliminating the income tax. Now, there's an alternative that eliminates the burden on individual citizens and reduces the burdens on businesses by over 90%. This alternative is the FAIRtax, a simple, progressive national retail sales tax on the retail purchases of new goods and services. In addition to removing the compliance burdens on Americans, the FAIRtax also eliminates income taxes on Social Security permanently, eliminates taxes on tips permanently, eliminates income taxes on overtime permanently. It also taxes imports and provides tax credits to U.S. exporters like all of our trading partners do. The FAIRtax also eliminates the need for most tariffs, brings jobs back to the United States, eliminates federal taxes up to the poverty level, requires no tax returns for individuals, clearly shows the federal taxes hidden in the prices of the goods we purchase. The FAIRtax will create greater economic growth, brings in capital that allows productivity increases and higher wages, eliminates lobbyists and politicians from selling tax benefits that harm the rest of us, and most of all, the FAIRtax eliminates the IRS. Now, we need to move now and put a stake in the heart of the income tax and the IRS so they cannot be easily resurrected by a subsequent administration. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and that returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the fair tax. Now, make no mistake about it. The fair tax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the fair tax will be fierce and unrelenting, and don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempt to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Now, of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so that no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the fair tax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the fair tax to President Trump, please let us know. Also, please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representative and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution: pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing, or actually investing, $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to fairtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.